Well, you all know, you've been told who I am. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. I'm 70 years old, and I've just launched my 4th collection in Paris the week before last. How did I get there? Good question. And why am I doing it still at my age? Everyone says I must be nuts. Why don't I just go and sort of grow vegetables and take life easy? I need a challenge in my life. And I think if you're a proper entrepreneur, you will feel the same. I need a challenge in my life. If I gave up and just did nothing now, I think I would just become a vegetable. I need something in my life. How did I get here? Right, I'll leave out all the early part because there's not much time. Suffice it to say that I was married, 2 small children. My husband was moving around the world. I followed him 2 years in America, 2 years in Brazil. I came back from Brazil in 1975 with no husband, no money, and 2 small children. They just had the 3-day week, so it was really difficult to get employment, and I was desperate for work. I had no intention of setting up my own business. That hadn't entered my head. I tried to get into advertising. I tried telephone sales. I even tried MI5, but I didn't have 4 English grandparents. Then I bumped into someone I'd met in Brazil who was importing alpaca jumpers. I don't know, you're probably all too young to remember them. Brightly coloured alpaca jumpers with llamas on them. And he offered me a sales job selling the jumpers. Yes, please. Yes, please. I did brilliantly for this man. I'd found my niche. I could sell. So I did trade fairs for him in Paris. I made him lots and lots of money, but he wouldn't give me any. So he wouldn't even give me 1%, nothing. So when I bumped into a mum at school when I was picking up my kids, and she'd been to the Royal College, and she knew the production side of making clothes. She knew how to cut patterns, and she knew production, none of which I knew. But when I was doing one of my trade fairs in Paris, I'd seen a collection called Cacahuète. It was one of the few things I remember. It was fashion sportswear, and nothing like that existed in this country. And I thought, wow, that's what I'm going to do. So we got together. I called it Ms., M-I-Z. And we did our fashion sportswear. She produced, and I had the ideas, and I designed, and I did the sales. And it went quite well. That was in 78. In 83, after 2 partners later, and having learned an awful lot, I left Ms., leaving it to my partner, who subsequently went bust, and I started Ghost. I had learned it was very dangerous to have partners. I had learned the bare bones of the fashion business. I had learned about pricing. I had learned about how to sell. I'd learned it right through, actually, and I felt confident of starting up Ghost, which I did. What was I going to do in Ghost? There was still a gap in the middle market. I'd gone off fashion sportswear by this time. I was really into fashion. There was very, very little in the middle market. Clothes were either hugely expensive, the beautiful clothes, or very, very cheap rubbish. There was very little in between. There were a few independent boutiques. There was a Wallace's, I recall. But by and large, it was difficult to get really nice individual clothes, at a good price. I worked with a designer who'd recently left St. Martin's, and she brought me this fabric from Italy, which they'd tried to use unsuccessfully. I'm going to show it to you. It was this. Doesn't look very much, does it? No. That's what it looks like. When you wash and dye it, however, you get this, normal size. So you can have a look at these afterwards. So she brought me this fabric. We made up a load of clothes. I booked a fair at Olympia, and the problem was we washed all the clothes we made, and they came out very small. We didn't know, we had no idea about the amount of shrinkage or anything like that at this point. So I had to get my daughter, who was 12, and her school friends to model it for me at Olympia because it was too small. It was too small to put on any fully grown person. Whether it was the young models or whether it was the clothes, I will never quite know. All I know is it was a sellout success. An American got on the stand, said, "It's money in the bank, folks," and we were off. I had so many orders. I mean, we were just absolutely overwhelmed. Big problem, though. I didn't have the money to produce it. I didn't have access to the fabric. I didn't have any production. I didn't have factories. I had no substructure. I had nothing. So the period that followed was unbelievable. My dad, bless him, put us flat on the line at Barclays to get me the money. That was one problem solved. I went all over the UK finding small units to produce for me. Very, very important to find small units because big units tend to use acetate thread, and acetate thread doesn't dye. So you'd get dyed clothes in colours with white thread showing everywhere. Loads of problems. Anita Roddick once said, "It's not the mistakes you make, it's how quickly you recover from them." And I was making lots of mistakes, but recovering quickly. Yes, I went to Germany and I begged and pleaded for them to open their shop and sell to me, and they did. So Ghost expanded very, very quickly, far too quickly for a finance director I brought in. He had an MBA and he told me I was overtrading. And he begged me to sort of slow down. I got rid of him. Rules are one thing, and MBAs are another thing, and degrees are another thing, but some of these people have never had a business, and they have no idea. So I think it's really, one of the tips I would give is to trust your instinct, as has already been said. It grew very quickly, Ghost. We had a wonderful time. There was a sort of positive energy in the 90s. The top models would do my shows. We went to New York. We were one of the first people to do shows in New York. It was a fantastic time, and I look back on it with pride, actually. We had Quentin Crisp, I don't know if you've heard of him, walking down the runway, and Sandra Bernhardt in the Oyster Bar in Grand Central Station, and we had fun. Fashion was much more fun then. It was a different time. And we'd built up a lot of positive energy because, as already been said, I was very nice to the staff. I paid them well. I fed them well. I was lovely to all our suppliers. I was lovely to all our customers. We fed them too. And word of mouth spreads very quickly. So if you have a nice positive atmosphere and energy around you, it spreads out. By 2000, we opened shops. Yeah, we opened shops. We opened 2 in America, 2 here, and 1 in Paris. That was a mistake, and I closed it very quickly. And through the shop in Los Angeles, we got a perfume deal, which turned out to be very, very lucrative. I think I made more money from the perfume deal, and also I did a cheap line for Marks and Spencer's, a cheaper version. They sold 500,000 of this trouser. So, it was easier to make money like that than it is selling to independent retailers. That's very, very slow and quite hard. By 2005, we had a license deal for perfume, jewellery, eyewear, hosiery, shoes, bags, and it all got too much for me. I really, we were employing well over 100 people, and it all got too much, and I sold it. That's another story. It wasn't quite that simple. But anyway, other people took it over. I left. I wasn't allowed to work for a year, got bored, started another business called Handwritten. That lasted 7 years. I didn't make any money, but it was a very, very good, we did beautiful collections. We didn't lose money, but we didn't make any. And I think an entrepreneur is supposed to make money. But it kept me busy and entertained, and I think I'm wearing it all, actually, yes. And then various things happened. I closed that. When did I close that? 2013. and decided that the middle market had gone. It was now you had to be very expensive or very cheap, and I decided I'd go very expensive. So therefore, my fourth collection, called Sarne, which currently launched in Paris, but a very different structure now. I've, as Joseph does, I've given it all to distributors to do all the hard work. I've given it all to the Romanian factory to do all the production. So all I have to do now is turn up at my office occasionally and design, which suits me fine. Tips. As I think they've already, most of them have been said, I think it's really important to work, to get experience in the area, in the business you're going into. You have to learn. You have to learn where all the pitfalls are. You have to identify your market. And what is your USP? Are you better? Are you different? Are you cheaper? What are you doing that's different from someone else? You know, unless you can identify that and know how you're going to approach your market, you'll get nowhere. Thirdly, I would say you have to know that you're going to have to work harder than you've ever worked in your life and harder than you can possibly imagine. And you know, take risks, trust your intuition, as Safia said. As far as copyright goes, if no one had copied me, I would have not have had a business. Copying is flattering. As long as you've got the trademarks all sorted out, it's very flattering to be copied. And finally, just to say, my biggest pleasure in my career has actually been not so much from making money. It's been the women who've come up to me and said, "You've changed my life. I love wearing your clothes. I'm wearing things now I've worn for, you know, years and years and years, and they still give me pleasure." And that's what's given me more pleasure than anything else. Thank you.